It was all right for about 6 miles. We got to Fairview. And Fairview, we came across the end of the street was blocked right across by soldiers, British soldiers, armed, of course. We stood and just looked at one another. Nobody said anything, soldiers or us. Nobody knew. We never entered our head there would be any trouble. And word was passed along to hand back a rifle. And we each handed a rifle back to the next rank, and so on, until we were all gone.
The Workers' Irish Citizen Army were that day having a quite separate drill parade at Fairview, and the Fina boys were acting as sentries.
We were on guard around this big hedge where the men were up at the front at the house, the Citizen Army were drilling. And suddenly rifles came through the hedges, thrown in through the hedges and over the hedges. And we were around it. And we couldn't realise it.
And the taxi cabs kept coming all night with an armful of rifles. And he threw them on the parlour floor and said, "Molly, hide them." And she went round and put them back at the shutters, the window shutters. And then another load came. This time she had to put them out in the garden along the cabbage rows. And all night long she was hiding guns. And now the next morning we got out and went to work. My brother and sister and myself. And towards evening we were notified. And the Cumann girls, we all joined and we went out on the tram car to Hope. And now we went into the bushes where these men had hidden the guns. And we all find them. And coming back, we couldn't sit down the tram car, and the conductor was furious because we had a rifle under our coat. And they were heavy German Mauser's.
The soldiers who'd tried but failed to disarm the volunteers, a detachment of the King's Own Scottish Borderers, had got back to Dublin and their barracks down a street by the Liffey known as Bachelor's Walk.
There was about, say, between 20 and 30 soldiers. They were marching 4 deep, and there was a crowd after them, boys and youngsters throwing missiles at them, like that. And one person made an attempt to take a gun off one of the soldiers at the back. And he held a gun, they wrestled over to the railings to a shop there, a baker, tea shop, and they wrestled, but the soldier won, and then he held a gun like that. It was a bayonet on it, and he backed into the ranks again. And it was then that the soldiers fired. Then I heard about the woman being shot. And the woman, I knew the woman. Now the woman was there was the steps, high steps, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up. She used to stand here selling matches. And she must have went up the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, for safety at the door. Therefore, she was a target for the soldiers. You understand, fording over the hedge. She was well high up.
Inquests were held on the 3 people killed. 38 were wounded. One of them died later. No nationalist could help contrasting what had happened on Bachelor's Walk after 900 rifles had been landed at Howth with the fact that over 26,000 rifles had been landed by Ulster volunteers without the British authorities interfering at all. The victim's funeral in Dublin expressed both sorrow and a powerfully mounting nationalist sentiment that Home Rule was not getting a fair deal. The Irish volunteers, with arms reversed, were prominent in the procession.
It was a terrible day in Dublin. They were crying, sobbing, and they were crying out vengeance on the Scottish Borderers. And we just kept marching and praying and crying.
Not only the Irish volunteers were in the funeral procession, but the Countess Markowitz, leading the women's organisation Cumann na After this, there was the feeling in the South that all Ireland Home Rule would have to go through. A few days later, the great European war was to break out, and apparently changed the situation entirely. An All-Ireland Home Rule Act was passed, but immediately suspended so that the Ulster question could be resolved in less dangerous days for Britain. Most volunteers were to join the British Army to help Britain meet her danger in the hope that she would then keep faith with the Act as passed.